As a member of Campaign for Borders Rail, I was pointing out years ago that there were potentially single track bridges over the line between here and Fala Hill which were going to constrain the double tracking in the future. And to my mind, if they'd been taken on board at that point, they could have been designed in relatively cheaply. I think now we've gone well past the point where that's achievable, unfortunately.
Well, let's just say that it's still a work in progress, and I'm still confident that we can win concessions and we can make sense be seen.
Fortunately, last year Transport Minister Keith Brown announced in response to pressure from the Campaign for Borders Rail and others that the platform sidings at Tweedbank would be extended to take in tourist charter trains, which can be 10 or 11 coaches long. That's a very valuable sign of investment for the future of the railway. But the problem is, at the moment, there is no spare capacity on the route north of Tweedbank to get those charter trains in. So we need to have some sort of accommodation between Network Rail, ScotRail and the charter train operators, so we can get these big trains bringing 500 people at a time into the borders with new spend that wouldn't otherwise have been there, so that we can get those trains right down the route to Tweedbank. And if we can, I think that will be a very successful aspect of the new Borders Railway. I do have a concern that in the last couple of years, Transport Scotland have taken a rather short-sighted view of the way they should deliver the railway. Originally they were planning 15.5 miles of double track out of the 30.5 miles of the Borders Railway from Newcraighall to Tweedbank. Now they've pulled that back to 9.5 miles. They're building new road bridges over the railway that will only allow single track rail width. So rebuilding these in the future to double track will be extremely expensive. So I do have some concerns about the way the railway is being delivered, but it's absolutely right that it is going back to Tweedbank.
In my view, what's absolutely essential is to make sure this is a sustainable railway. And if you look at the words of Lord Steele recently when he was campaigning in the 1960s to retain this line, he said what they should have done is that a slimmed down number of stations and also the single track was what he said would have made it sustainable and kept it going. We have to make sure when we do these projects, this is £358 million, a third of £1 billion, that we get this right, and it has to be sustainable, and I believe we've got that balance right.
Now, they're still a bit niggled about a couple of things, if we can clarify them. First of all, the 55-minute, which was originally the aim, I suppose, to get trains from Tweedbank to Edinburgh and vice versa. The draft timetable has come out now, and they're a little bit disappointed, I suppose, that it's more nearer the hour mark.
What we've said is the timetable will facilitate 98% of journeys taking place in under an hour, and within that 2 trains per hour regularly, trains with the fastest possible time of 54 minutes per hour. And that was a commitment that we gave previously, and we've remained true to that commitment.
Everyone wanted a 16 mile of double track. That's now gone down to 9.5 miles, something they're obviously not happy about. What was the reasons behind that?
Well, I think the Campaign for Borders Rail have also said that I've been penny wise and pound foolish. Well, you know, in the current situation that we're in with the budgets being cut, the capital budget of the Scottish Government, for example, has been cut by 26%. We do have to make sure that the projects which we fund are sustainable. And I think that what we've done and what Network Rail have done in putting forward this design is to make sure it is sustainable. So we believe that that level of investment, as I've said, over a third of £1 billion, and the benefits that we'll get from that is a good balance. And we don't believe that spending substantially more, just to go back to the point again that Lord Steele raised, one of the reasons why Beeching was able to cut this was because he saw it as unsustainable, and Lord Steele has said if they'd made it more sustainable by, say, single track or by fewer stations or less staff involved in those stations, they could have retained that service. What we are adamant we should do is not start a rail line which is not sustainable, and that's why we've come out with what we proposed.
Now, the Borders Railway, obviously 2015, is everything on target for it?
Yes, we have said for some time that we'll try and pull that back in if it's at all possible. A large chunk of that time is actually involved in driver training, which we have to do. People have to be specifically trained on the new route. But we've said to Network Rail we want them to come back to us and say if there's any possibility of pulling that timetable back in, because we want to see this started as soon as possible, just like the people along the length of the Borders line.
So it's all going absolutely swimmingly. The budget, what about that? Tell us about that.
It's maintaining itself to budget, and also some of the work that's been done in terms of the construction. For example, they found some of the work in the mining areas less troublesome than they anticipated. Weather has been, although it's been difficult for some people, they found the weather to be quite amenable to cracking on with the work. So far progress both on budget and construction is going well. And as I say, if there's any dividend from that we can bring that back in, then we'll do that.
railway will pass under the city bypass. It's a substantial structure and one of the main roads around Edinburgh. So we've had to build a substantial diversion. We've got 4 lanes of live traffic there, and we had 3 weekends of diversions to put all the city's bypass traffic onto that road. Now we're getting on with the structure, so it's obviously there's been quite a lot of progress since the transfer. We've got one wall constructed. You can see the roof beams over to the side there. We've got to construct the other wall, and then we'll lift on the roof beams, bury the structure, and then reinstate the city bypass, transfer all the traffic back over.
I can see tourism. I can see tourism, for examples, Abbotsford House, Galashiels, opportunities for businesses there. I can see families going to live in the borders because it's a lovely place to live, with beautiful schools, happy places to live. I can see them moving down. They may work in Edinburgh, they may work in the borders, but they'll live in the borders, and we badly need young people and young families. I can see the fact that there are opportunities, for instance, during the Edinburgh Festival, for an extension down to the borders. There's all these things from which the borders has been disconnected for far too long. If people come to live in the borders and buy a house, the painter and decorator, the plumber, the man who fixes the roof, the garden centre, the shops, all benefit. If you're coming to live in the borders, the school benefits. It has children coming into the area. It takes people into the borders that might not have gone before, and it gives opportunities for minibuses, it gives opportunities for taxi drivers, for little tour companies in the borders to be at Tweedbank or elsewhere and pick people up and take them elsewhere. So, you know, it gives people the chance to develop their businesses across the borders using this, because believe you me, it will be internationally exciting. People across the world are interested in, if I may call it, the Waverley Line.